When night falls, the world outside grows silent. Yet within us, 1,000 voices begin to awaken. They are the echoes of unfinished dreams, the fear of being forgotten, and the child within who once believed in miracles. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And perhaps nowhere allows us to touch that hidden depth more profoundly than the realm of fairy tales. Tonight, let every story guide you back to the primordial world of the soul, where the princess is not merely a symbol of love, but the spiritual essence awaiting awakening, where the dragon, the witch, or the frozen mountain are metaphors for fear, challenge, and inner rebirth. Bedtime Fairy Tales for Adults, 4 hours of calm sleep, is not merely a journey into slumber. It is a voyage into the unconscious, where dreams, memories, and the light of the soul become one. Close your eyes and let the journey begin. Part 1. An invitation into sleep. Night falls softly. Thin clouds drift past the moon, leaving behind a gentle halo that glows like the breath of someone resting peacefully. In the stillness of the room, the storyteller sits by the window. Their voice, deep and warm, rises, not loud, not faint, but as if speaking only to one weary soul. "It's time to let go," the voice whispers. "Let your breath slow down. Let your mind rest." Outside, the world still hums with hurried sounds. The distant hum of cars, the whisper of wind brushing against the frame. But slowly, everything fades, like mist lifting from the surface of a lake. In that quiet moment, we feel the weight of the long day slip away. The body softens, the mind settles, and then, within that stillness, a door begins to open. No one knows where it leads, but we can sense it. A door illuminated by a pale lunar glow, guiding us into another world, a place untouched by the noise of mankind. No commands, no expectations, no memories sharp enough to wound. Only light, memory, and magic merging together, like the breath of the universe inviting us home. The storyteller continues, their voice carried gently by the wind. Imagine you're walking along a path covered in silver mist. Beneath your feet, soft, cool grass cushions each step. With every movement, you hear your heartbeat, slow, steady, peaceful. Every breath becomes a rhythm of life. Every heartbeat, a note in the symphony of the cosmos. We listen in silence and realize we are no longer alone. Something is listening with us. Perhaps a soul, or perhaps the true self we have long forgotten amidst the world's clamor. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And perhaps this very moment is the beginning of that awakening, when we release all the masks, all the roles, all the noise of society. We begin to look within, not with the intellect, but with the stillness of the soul. In the realm of dreams, we are no longer names, titles, or histories. We are simply travelers walking through a field of memory, where time stands still, where the world softens, and all pain dissolves like dew upon a leaf. The forest ahead glows with a pale light. The moon bathes every branch in silver, and within the gentle breeze, something sings. Not the song of humans, but of souls. Old dreams, forgotten fragments of ourselves, are calling us home. We hear the voice of the child we once were, innocent, pure, asking softly, "Why did adults forget how to dream?" Jung once said, "The dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul." And now, that very door stands before us. We step through, light as a whisper, and the world changes hue. Light rises from the earth. Forgotten memories bloom like flowers. Fears dissolve into dusts of starlight. In that moment, we understand. Sleep is not forgetting. It is the journey home. Home to the source of the mind. Home to the radiance we lost while chasing tomorrow. Home to the self, pure, still, and full of love. The storyteller's voice returns, now like a blessing. You've come far. Let your body rest. Everything you've been seeking, peace, love, forgiveness, is already here, within you. Just breathe. Just listen. Just dream. We close our eyes. The light recedes. The sounds melt away. And before we drift into deep sleep, we hear one final whisper, soft as mist, warm as a palm against the heart. Do not fear the darkness, for within it, light is waiting. And so, with the last breath of wakefulness, we cross the dream's threshold into the world of symbols, the world where, as Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That night, we did not merely sleep. We began the journey home, the journey back to ourselves. Part 2. The Two Brothers, and the journey to find the princess. In a small village nestled at the foot of a mountain, where the morning mist lay thick as smoke, two brothers were born in the old wooden house of a poor shoemaker. The elder was named Elias, bright-eyed, with a voice full of confidence and an unyielding desire to rise beyond the village. The younger was Rowan, quiet, gentle, and always smiling, though his hands were rough from labor. They grew up together, yet the paths within their hearts had always diverged. Elias believed that happiness was something to be conquered, while Rowan believed that happiness comes to those who know how to give. One morning, a rumor swept through the village. Beyond the mountains lay the sleeping castle, where Princess Seraphine and her entire court had been cursed into slumber for 100 years. It was said that whoever broke the spell would inherit the kingdom. That rumor ignited a fire in Elias's ambitious heart. In his eyes shone a light that Rowan had never seen before, the radiance of conquest, tinged with pride and the wildness of youth. "This is our chance, Rowan," Elias said. "I will break the curse. I wasn't born to live forever in this wooden house." Rowan looked at him, calm eyes, still as a lake. "If you go, I will go with you, not for the crown, but because I'm afraid you might lose your way." And so, when the sun spilled over the mountain ridge, the brothers set out. One carried faith and strength, the other, the quiet loyalty of a heart untainted by ambition. Their path wound along rocky cliffs and through shadowed forests, where the wind through the trees whispered like the voice of old tales. That first night, they camped beside a clear stream. Elias carved a walking stick, eyes fixed on the stars, speaking of how he would be honored like the heroes of legend. Rowan remained silent, watching the water. On the surface of the stream, the moon reflected their faces, two of the same blood, yet mirroring two different souls, one driven by glory, the other rooted in compassion. Carl Jung once wrote, "Every man carries within him the eternal image of woman, not the image of this or that particular woman, but a definite feminine image." Princess Seraphine, then, was not merely a person but a symbol of the feminine essence within each man, the part that feels, loves, and listens, yet has long been locked away by ambition and fear. Elias set out to rescue the princess, but in truth, he was seeking the part of his own soul that had fallen asleep. Rowan followed not for the crown, but because he understood that every man needs a mirror, something to help him see his own humanity in the darkness. They passed through ancient forests where fallen leaves drifted like fragments of time. They met beggars, wounded animals, and streams that flowed backward, and each encounter revealed more of who they truly were. Elias hurried on. He wanted the destination, the triumph. Rowan stopped often, to mend a bird's broken wing, to rebuild an anthill, to listen to the murmur of the stream. Once, crossing a desolate field, Elias snapped, "Don't you understand? We don't have time. Helping these weak things, what good does it do?" Rowan simply replied, "Maybe it does no good for the world, but it does good for my soul." Elias laughed dismissively, but deep inside something soft flickered, a tenderness he had tried to forget. They walked on until the final mountain appeared, its peak veiled in clouds, and beyond it, the sleeping castle. Elias clenched his fists, his eyes blazing. Rowan slowed his pace, standing quietly at the base of the slope, as though he knew the true journey was not above them, but within. Jung once said in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." That was the boundary between the two brothers. Elias looked outward, dreaming of glory. Rowan looked inward, listening for truth. As they rested for the last time, the night sky unfurled like a black veil. The fire flickered, casting shadows across their faces. Elias gazed up at the stars, imagining the throne awaiting him. Rowan looked into the flames and saw their mother's face, the gentle woman who once said, "Never let your heart turn to stone, no matter how cold the world becomes." And perhaps from that moment, the story ceased to be about a quest for a sleeping princess and became a journey to find the brother's fading heart. When dawn breaks tomorrow, they will cross the stone bridge leading to the sleeping castle. One carries the ambition of the world, the other, the kindness of nature. One wishes to awaken the princess with strength, the other with faith. And somewhere in the forest, the wind seems to whisper, a voice rising from the depths of the unconscious. Only a pure heart can awaken the sacred. Thus, the tale of the two brothers is not merely a quest for an enchanted princess, but a timeless allegory of the human journey, between ego and soul, between desire and compassion, between light and shadow. As night closes and the moon crowns the peak, the younger brother whispers, perhaps to himself, "Maybe the magic isn't in the castle ahead, but in the way we walk toward it." And under the silver light of the moon, two small figures continue their journey. One seeking the princess, the other himself. Part 3. The Test of the Heart. The road to the sleeping castle was not merely a geographical journey. It was a pilgrimage of the soul. As the sun slowly descended, the forest light turned to amber. Elias and Rowan ventured deeper into the land, said to be where darkness listens and light speaks. For days they crossed dense woods, where trees grew tangled together like ancient spirits guarding forgotten secrets. Elias grew increasingly impatient. He refused to stop, unwilling to waste time on trivial things. Rowan was different. He walked slower, attentive to every sound, every petal, every small creature in the underbrush. To him, nature was not an obstacle, but a silent teacher. One afternoon, they paused beside an old tree. At Elias's feet was an anthill, perched precariously among the roots. He frowned. The path was blocked. Without a thought, he kicked hard. The anthill shattered, and hundreds of tiny ants scattered in panic. "Just meaningless creatures," he said. "We don't have time." Rowan knelt down, watching the ants rush to save what was left of their tiny world. He spoke softly. "You know, they're trying to protect their kingdom too. Small, yes, but perhaps as precious to them as dreams are to men." Elias scoffed and walked ahead. The next day, they passed a cliff where a bird's nest had been blown down to a lower branch. The hatchlings chirped weakly. Elias looked up and said, "We must keep moving. Saving one nest won't save the world." But Rowan stopped. He gently lifted the nest and placed it back among the higher branches. When he finished, he looked up at the returning mother bird and smiled. "Perhaps I didn't save the world," he whispered, "but maybe I just saved a little faith." That night, as they rested by a stream, Rowan sat silently listening to the flowing water. Elias asked, "Do you really think these small acts can change anything?" Rowan replied softly, "It's not the world that needs to change, but our hearts. Only when the heart opens will the world open with it." The words unsettled Elias. In the darkness, he heard his heartbeat quicken, perhaps not from anger, but from fear that his brother might be right. The next day, they crossed an open field where a golden beehive shimmered in the sun. Elias saw the hive and thought of honey. He approached, reaching to take some, but when the bees flew out, he grew angry and swung his stick, striking the hive until the bees scattered. One bee fell wounded near Rowan's feet. Rowan gently lifted it onto a leaf and whispered an apology. In that moment, the air seemed to shift. A breeze carried the scent of honey, and a strange rustling sound, as if unseen eyes were watching. Rowan sensed it, that something invisible was observing every gesture, every choice. A test not from the outside world, but from within. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And it seemed both brothers were slowly approaching that moment. Every action of Elias revealed the ego, ambitious and controlling, while every act of Rowan came from the self, compassionate, attuned, harmonious. The journey was not simply toward the castle, but toward the center of their own being. When night fell, they rested beside a forest path. Elias sat in silence, staring into the black sky. Thousands of stars glittered like eyes. He sighed. "Maybe you're right. But if one lives only to feel compassion, how can anything ever be achieved?" Rowan did not answer at once. After a while, he said quietly, "Perhaps we were not born to achieve something, but to become someone." Jung once said in The Undiscovered Self, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." In the firelight, their faces glowed. Elias looked at his brother and saw, in those gentle eyes, no judgment, only a quiet light he had never found in himself. Perhaps that was what frightened him most, the purity he had lost. By morning, they reached the region known as the Valley of Silence, where the path to the castle began. The forest opened into a clearing, and in that stillness, even the sound of falling leaves seemed like a warning. Elias paused. He noticed the trails of ants, the birds on their branches, and the bees gliding across the air. A strange feeling stirred in his chest, as if those tiny creatures were watching, remembering every act he had done. In that instant, he understood. The world does not forget. No deed, however small or selfish, vanishes into nothing. Everything leaves a trace, not upon the earth, but upon the soul. Rowan walked ahead, turned back, and smiled softly. "Come on, brother. The true path is only just beginning." Elias followed, and in the light of dawn he realized something profound. The tests of the heart are never spoken. They are given through our silent choices. As they walked, the wind brushed through the trees, and in its whisper, Elias heard a faint sound. The voices of those small beings he once dismissed, now forming a melody, a song of forgiveness. And so the two brothers journeyed on, one carrying courage, the other compassion. Yet somewhere deep within, Elias knew that it was Rowan, not he, who was truly drawing closer to the miracle. For in the end, as Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The tests of the heart do not come to block our way, but to illuminate the path inward. And as Elias walked on in silence, he did not yet know that the very creatures he once scorned would one day become his allies. Because in the world of the soul, nothing is ever small, only unseen by the heart that has yet to awaken. Part 4. The Three Trials in the Sleeping Castle. When dawn broke over the Silver Mountains, Elias and Rowan saw the sleeping castle emerging through the mist like a mirage. Its walls were veiled in green moss. Old trees stretched their arms over windows long forgotten by time. No birds sang, no wind stirred. Only an uncanny stillness, as if the entire world were holding its breath. They approached the gate. The great door was shut, yet unlocked. When Rowan touched it, a deep echoing sound rumbled through the air before it slowly opened. Inside, a vast corridor stretched endlessly. Pale light filtered through shattered glass windows and fell upon the cold stone floor. At the center of the hall sat an old woman in a gray cloak, her long silver hair cascading over her shoulders. She looked at the two brothers with eyes as deep as an ancient well. "You've come to awaken the princess," she asked, her voice raspy, yet echoing from somewhere beyond time. Elias stepped forward and nodded. "Yes, I've come to break the curse. I will be the one to save this kingdom." The old woman smiled, but within that smile lay both gentleness and gravity. "To break the curse, you must face 3 trials. But remember, failure means eternal sleep." Elias did not hesitate. "I'm ready." Rowan said nothing. He simply nodded. The first trial, sorting the grains in the Chamber of Time. The old woman led them into a vast room. The floor was covered with a mixture of grains, wheat, corn, millet, all scattered together. "You must sort them into their rightful jars within 1 hour. If not, the door will seal forever." Elias leapt into action, his hands sweeping through the grains, sorting frantically. But the more he worked, the more chaotic it became. The seeds mixed again, and time slipped like sand through his fingers. Frustrated and breathless, he threw a handful of grains onto the floor. Rowan sat down quietly, breathing steadily. He observed for a moment, then whispered, "I'm not alone." From the cracks in the walls, tiny ants began to appear. The very same creatures Elias had once crushed in the forest. They formed lines, working in harmony, sorting every grain with precision. Soon, each jar was filled perfectly. When the bell chimed, the door opened. Elias looked around in disbelief. Rowan bowed his head and softly thanked the little ants disappearing back into the stones. Carl Jung once wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder, a secret order." Rowan understood this truth, that within stillness and trust, nature rearranges itself into harmony. But Elias had yet to learn that his impatience had distanced him from the magic he sought. With the second trial, finding the golden key beneath the lake, they stepped outside to a still, mirror-like lake. The old woman said, "The key to the princess's chamber lies somewhere at the bottom. Whoever retrieves it may proceed." Elias dove in first. The water was icy cold. He swam deep, searching blindly, but the lake was bottomless. His eyes burned, his lungs ached. He surfaced, gasping and furious. "It's useless," he shouted. "It can't be found." Rowan approached the edge, knelt, and gazed into the water. "If strength cannot win," he murmured, "then I'll trust in faith." From afar, a flock of white ducks glided toward him, circling gently. One duck dove beneath the surface, and when it rose again, a golden key gleamed between its beak. Elias stared wide-eyed. Rowan bowed gratefully. The old woman smiled, a knowing smile, as though she had foreseen it all. Carl Jung once wrote in Man and His Symbols, "The symbol of water is the most common expression for the unconscious." Rowan had dared to reach into the depths not with force, but with faith. And that faith, united with nature, with the unconscious, had brought him the key. With the third trial, choosing the true princess among 3 shadows, the final door opened into a grand hall strewn with withered roses. At the center lay 3 maidens, asleep beneath thin veils, all identical in form. The old woman spoke. "Only one is the true Princess Seraphine. The other 2 are illusions. Choose wrongly, and the curse will never be lifted." Elias stepped forward, eyes scanning each face, all 3 radiant as myth. He pointed to the one in the middle without hesitation. "This is the true princess. I can feel it." The old woman shook her head, gently. "What you feel comes from desire, not from the heart." Elias fell silent. Rowan stepped forward quietly. He knelt beside the 3 maidens and listened. The wind stirred the petals across the floor. Then, from the window, came a faint buzzing. The golden bees he had once saved. One bee flew in and landed softly on the hand of the maiden to the right. Rowan smiled. "It's her." The old woman nodded. "You have listened to life, and life has answered you." In that instant, the princess opened her eyes. Light radiated outward, streaming through every window, flooding the castle. Trees bloomed, rivers flowed, birds sang once more. The moss-covered walls shone as if cleansed by the morning sun. Elias fell to his knees, tears in his eyes. Rowan helped the princess to rise, his heart free of pride, filled only with the quiet stillness of an awakened soul. As the light filled the castle, the old woman's voice drifted softly like wind through leaves. The trials were never meant to find the strongest, but the one with the most loving heart. Jung once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, the hero's journey is not to defeat the dragon, but to integrate him. Rowan did not triumph through strength, but through compassion, through harmony with nature, the unconscious, and his own depths. He did not slay the dragon outside, but transformed the dragon within, the ego of pride. And Elias, though he failed, was not truly defeated, for in that light he realized that the princess he had long sought was not in the castle but within his own heart, the part that had been frozen by ambition, now beginning to melt. Princess Seraphine looked at the two brothers and smiled gently. "Thank you, both of you. One of you awakened me, and the other awakened himself. And because of that, both are now free." Light overflowed. The castle echoed with birdsong, its first melody in 100 years. And in that sacred silence, perhaps both brothers had awakened. Not merely from the world's sleep, but from the sleep of the soul. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Gustav Jung. And perhaps when the curse broke, it was not merely the miracle of a fairy tale, but the miracle of awakening itself. Part 5. The world of dreams and deep sleep. When the curse was lifted, the castle gleamed amidst the silver dawn. But instead of cheers or triumphant trumpets, a sacred stillness descended. Rowan stood by a broken window, watching the first rays of light spill across the forest. Everything seemed to awaken from a long dream, and he himself was unsure whether he was awake or still dreaming. Princess Seraphine, in her ivory gown, spoke softly. "You did not only awaken me, Rowan. You awakened the dream that had been asleep within this world." Her words brushed against his soul like a warm breeze, and in that instant, Rowan felt a strange calling, not to return, but to continue forward. Something was summoning him from afar, from a realm beyond the castle's light, beyond the reach of the living. That night, while the kingdom rejoiced in celebration, Rowan quietly departed. He walked toward the forest, where moonlight poured through the branches like a silver river. With each step along the misty path, he heard the wind singing melodies without names, as if nature itself was humming. Then he stopped. Before him, the forest glowed, not with fire or torchlight, but with the inner radiance of trees, grass, stones, and air, light that seemed to rise from within. He inhaled, and the scent of night flowers, water, and something deeply familiar filled him. Peace. In that light, everything felt alive. The waterfall shimmered like a ribbon of crystal, echoing an ancient song. Tiny creatures crossed his path and bowed. The wind whispered softly, saying words he could not hear with his ears, but understood with his heart. Rowan realized he stood within the realm of dreams, the place where consciousness and the unconscious unite. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The dream is a little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul." Rowan had crossed that hidden door without knowing. In this dreamlike world, there was no boundary between real and unreal. The moonlight reflected on the stream like the eyes of a gentle mother, kind and filled with love. He walked on until he came upon a bridge clear as glass. Beyond it lay a garden, open and endless, without walls or fences, only flowers and wind. At its center stood a pure white bed, covered with a thin sheet, surrounded by soft beams of light. Rowan paused, touching the fabric. It was warm and tender, like the embrace of someone who had been waiting. He no longer felt heavy. No more thoughts, no more goals, no more "I must" or "I should." Everything dissolved into stillness. Then came a familiar voice, from nowhere and everywhere. "You have come far enough, Rowan. Do not fear sleep. Sleep is not an ending. It is a return." Rowan closed his eyes. His breath slowed. The moon tilted, spreading a silver veil of light over his body. It was as if the entire forest breathed with him, slow, deep, in rhythm with his heart. In that moment, humanity, nature, and spirit became one. For somewhere beyond understanding, Rowan found himself standing between two worlds. Behind him, the radiant light of life. Before him, the still sea of dreams. A door appeared, like the first one on the night his journey began. But this time, it called not with curiosity, but with peace. He heard Jung's voice echo within his mind. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. And he understood that to truly awaken, one must dare to walk deep into one's own dream. Rowan stepped through the door. On the other side, there were no more trials, no more curses, no more darkness, only a gentle light spreading endlessly. All pain, all fear, all memories once heavy, dissolved into the air like morning mist in sunlight. He lay down on the white bed in the garden. The wind brushed through his hair like a mother's hand. Above him, the sky turned slowly, and the stars drew golden spirals, the shape of the mandala, the symbol of the self, the sacred center of the soul. Jung once wrote in Ion, "The self is not only the center, but also the whole circumference which embraces both conscious and unconscious." Rowan did not know these words, but his soul understood. He no longer distinguished who he was or where he was. Everything merged, man, wind, water, light, into a single, endless dream. Outside the forest, as dawn broke, Princess Seraphine emerged from the castle and found the white bed in the dreamlike garden. Rowan lay there, his face serene, as if sleeping in the arms of the world. A faint smile curved his lips. The princess placed her hand gently on his forehead and whispered, "Sleep well, friend of the stars." Then, as she turned away, a breeze stirred. Petals fell like rain. Light spread through the forest, and for a moment, everything shimmered. From afar, the storyteller's voice returned, a final lullaby for the listener. Let your breath slow down. Let your mind rest. For sleep is not forgetfulness, but the place where the soul returns to be healed. And within the world of dreams, you will find yourself again. Well, that night, not only Rowan, but the listener too drifted into deep sleep, a sleep not of exhaustion but of peace, where darkness was no longer frightening and light no longer distant. For as Jung once said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Yet, in this sleep, pain was transmuted, dissolved into the wind, into the dewdrops on the grass, into the calm breath of the universe. The night closed gently. The world of dreams continued to hum. And there, the human soul, after all its wandering, had finally come home. Part 6. The Swan Curse. In a faraway kingdom, where the hills were veiled in mist and the lakes lay still as glass, there lived a kind king and queen. They had 7 children, 6 princes and their youngest daughter, Princess Elara. She was born at dawn, when the sky blushed with shades of rose, and people said the sunrise had chosen her as a child of light. Elara's childhood drifted by in gardens filled with laughter. Her 6 brothers loved her, like a precious gem resting in the palm of their hands. Every afternoon they ran together across the fields, playing beneath the willow tree by the lake. Elara would embroider white handkerchiefs for them, while they wove crowns of wildflowers for her. The 7 of them were one, in harmony, like the rhythm of a single heart. But one day, dark clouds gathered over the once clear skies of the kingdom. From the north came an old witch, once exiled by the king for practicing black magic. Filled with hatred, she swore to make him taste loss. She came not with thunder, but in silence. One night, while the 6 princes were hunting in the forest, she cast a spell over the lake, cloaking it in enchanted mist. As they crossed its waters, the moon reflected their images, and those reflections began to dissolve into white wings. The next morning, Elara ran to the forest's edge to find her brothers, but instead of the familiar sound of laughter, she saw 6 white swans soaring across the sky, crying out with a sorrow that pierced the heart. The sound of lost souls calling home. One of them circled above her, letting a single white feather fall into her trembling hands. Elara collapsed to her knees. Tears fell upon the feather. She knew then. This was no dream. Days passed, and the palace grew cold. The king and queen sank into despair. Elara wandered through the woods, calling her brothers' names into the wind, into the water, into the silent trees. She prayed to the gods, to the moon, but only the wind answered. One night, beneath a full moon, Elara dreamt of a gentle face glowing in the light. The mother within her unconscious, the archetype of the Great Mother, as Jung once described. The mother is the first world we know and the last one we leave. In the dream, the mother said, "Child of light, follow the path of your heart. When you're brave enough to love without needing to be loved in return, magic will lead the way." When she awoke, Elara understood she could no longer remain in the castle, where memory had hardened into pain. She wrapped herself in a wool cloak, took the white feather, the only sign of her brothers, and stepped into the forest, where mist and shadow became one. Elara walked endlessly, along roads the sun never touched. She crossed frozen rivers, foggy hills, and forests so dense she could no longer tell day from night. With each step, she whispered a prayer. "Please, let me see them once more." At last, when the sun set for the 7th time, she came to a vast lake. Its surface was still as a mirror, reflecting a sky turning to indigo. Elara knelt, her tears falling into the water, and from the ripples, 6 white swans slowly emerged. They landed upon the lake, circling her, their wings shimmering under the moonlight. Elara reached out a trembling hand. The leading swan approached, its eyes sorrowful, yet familiar. Those eyes belonged to her eldest brother. As the moonlight touched the lake, the 6 swans transformed back into men, only for a fleeting moment, as if the spell allowed them human form under the full moon. They stood before her, thin and pale, yet their eyes were kind. They knelt and placed their hands on her shoulders. "You have found us," said the eldest, his voice low and gentle. "But the curse remains. When the sun rises, we shall be swans again. There is only one way to save us, but it is a path not meant for the faint of heart." "I'm ready," Elara replied without hesitation. Her brother continued, "You must sew 6 shirts made of wild daisies. Only when each petal is woven by your own hands will the spell be broken. But there is one condition. Through all this time, you must not speak, nor laugh, nor cry. A single word, and all will be lost." Elara bowed her head and took her brother's hands. "I promise." Moonlight shimmered on the rippling surface of the lake, reflecting her face, fragile, yet resolute. And as dawn touched the horizon, her 6 brothers transformed once more into swans and rose into the sky, leaving her alone in the forest. Elara watched them disappear, her eyes glistening with tears she could not shed. From that day on, her journey began. By day, she gathered wild daisies in the forest, each petal a fragment of hope. By night, she sat beneath the moonlight, sewing in silence, stitch by stitch. No one knew who she was. They saw only a quiet girl walking through villages, carrying a basket of white flowers and eyes full of gentleness. People called her the Maiden of Silence, but in her heart, Alara was never alone. Each time the wind stirred, she heard the beating of distant wings. Each time a daisy bloomed, she felt her brother's hands near her own. Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Alara understood. Pain was not the enemy, but the guide. Silence was not punishment, but the language of the soul. Winter came. The cold lashed at her skin. Her hands bled, yet she kept sewing. The shirt slowly took form, rough but scented with wild daisies. In every stitch was love. In every thread, a prayer. One night, as snow blanketed the forest, Alara looked up and saw 6 swans gliding across the sky. Their wings shimmered under the moonlight, radiant as free spirits. She smiled, without words, without tears, and a single tear fell onto the unfinished shirt. Perhaps that tear itself was magic, for it was not born from despair, but from pure love. A love no words could ever hold. From afar, people would later say that on that night, the lake where the 6 swans dwelt glowed like the Milky Way, and the sky opened a path of light descending to the earth. The tale of the swan curse is more than a legend of a brave girl. It is an allegory of the soul's healing journey. Alara is the symbol of the anima, the sacred feminine within every heart, the part of us that embodies compassion and the capacity to love in silence. Her 6 brothers, turned into swans, are the 6 aspects of reason and instinct within us, enchanted by the spells of modern life, the magic of ambition, fear, and indifference. Only when we return to inner silence, when we learn to love without needing words, when we endure without bitterness, can the sacred within us, long turned to stone, awaken again. And if you listen closely on nights when the wind is still, you might hear the faint beating of wings across the sky, the sound of 6 swans still circling this world, guarding the hearts that are learning to love in silence, just as Alara once did. Part 7. Ilara's Vow of Silence. The night sky was draped in a silver mist. A slender moon hovered above the lake, reflecting the image of a young girl sitting alone on the damp grass. That girl was Alara, the youngest princess of the kingdom, cursed by the spell of the swans. Her 6 brothers had turned into white-winged creatures, soaring through the lonely expanse of the heavens, while she, the only one left in human form, carried within her heart an ache too deep for words. Since that day, Ilara's dreams had lost their colors. Each night, she saw wings sweeping across the sky, dissolving into clouds, leaving behind a vast emptiness inside her chest. Every morning, when she awoke, she placed her hand over her heart, feeling its pulse. And strangely, it no longer felt like hers alone. It was as if 6 other hearts were beating with her, somewhere far away. One night, as Alara sat by the lake, a black raven landed beside her. Its eyes, deep as twin embers, gazed into hers with uncanny understanding. Then it spoke, its voice echoing like wind through a forest. "You are searching for them, aren't you?" Alara nodded. Tears welled up but did not fall. "There is a path to break the curse," the raven continued, "but it is not for the faint of heart. If you dare to walk it, you must learn the art of silence. No words, no tears, no laughter, until your task is done." Alara's eyes glimmered with a fragile hope. "What must I do?" "You must gather wild daisies from the northern forest. From their petals, weave 6 shirts, 1 for each of your brothers. Only when they wear the garments sewn by your hands will the spell be undone. But remember, a single word, a single tear, a single smile, and all will be lost." Alara was silent for a long time. Then she bowed her head, pressing her hand to her chest, as if listening to her heart one last time. "I accept," she whispered. And that whisper became the last word she ever allowed herself to speak. The next morning, Alara left the castle, without farewell, without tears. She walked beneath the trees, sunlight trickling through the leaves onto her calm, resolute face. The basket over her shoulder slowly filled with white daisies, each petal like a breath of hope. On the first day, she began sewing with threads spun from her own hair. Each stitch was a silent prayer. Her hands blistered and bled, yet she did not stop. By night, the moonlight fell upon the flowers, turning them into strands of silver. Gradually, Alara learned the language of silence. She listened to the wind and understood it was comforting her. She looked to the sky and knew the stars were watching over her sleep. She no longer spoke with words, but with her eyes, her breath, and her trembling yet unwavering hands. Carl Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Silence is not emptiness. It is fullness that words cannot contain." Alara began to understand that in silence the soul becomes clear. When one stops speaking, one begins to hear the voice of the earth, the voice of the heavens, and the whispers of one's own heart. One night, while sewing the third shirt, Alara heard footsteps behind her. A woodcutter stopped, surprised by the sight of a young woman working alone in the cold night. "What are you doing here, all by yourself?" he asked. Alara did not answer. She bowed her head and kept sewing. The man looked around, saw the basket of flowers, the half-finished shirts, the drops of blood on her fingertips. "You're hurt," he said. "Let me help you." Alara shook her head and smiled. The first smile she had shown in days, but then she remembered the curse. She quickly lowered her face, pressing her lips together, her heart pounding fast. The woodcutter left, leaving her alone in the darkness. Alara sighed softly, her shoulders trembling, not from fear, but from realization. She understood that the greatest strength is not in fighting the world, but in keeping one's heart still amid the longing to be understood. Winter came. Snow blanketed the forest, the cold biting into her skin, yet Alara continued. The 6 shirts slowly took shape, 5 complete, the last still unfinished. Each fabric was woven from hundreds of sleepless nights, thousands of drops of sweat and blood. Sometimes white wings passed across the sky. Alara would look up, seeing her 6 brothers gliding together, circling the mountain peaks. She could not call to them. She could not cry. But within her chest, a warm current flowed. Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Perhaps every stitch Alara made was a step deeper into consciousness, a journey not to conquer the world, but to transform herself. One day, Alara saw 6 swans descending upon the lake. Moonlight touched their wings, turning them luminous, pure as spirits. One of them drew near, bowing its head. In that moment, Alara wanted to cry out, to tell them she was almost finished, that only 1 shirt remained. But her throat tightened, and she could only smile as silent tears rolled down her cheeks. She realized then that her silence was no longer a burden. It had become a ritual of love, a devotion beyond words, beyond the need for recognition. Only truth. Night fell. The moon dimmed, but the fire within Alara's heart burned bright. She sewed the final stitch with a strand of her golden hair glowing beneath the moonlight. When the last shirt was done, she laid all 6 upon her lap and closed her eyes. She did not know when the curse would break, nor did she need to, for through her silence, she had already shattered another curse, the human curse, the fear of being alone with oneself. At that moment, wind swept through the forest, scattering daisy petals like 1,000 tiny stars, and somewhere far above, 6 swans cried out, no longer the cry of sorrow, but a song of hope. Alara lifted her gaze, her eyes shimmering like the night sky. She did not speak, but if one could listen to the rhythm of her heart at that moment, they would hear a message echoing through the silence. "I am coming, my brothers, and when I arrive, it will not only be your curse that is broken, but the darkness within me that will finally see the light. The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, only outgrown. Carl Gustav Jung. And Elara, through her silence, had outgrown them all, not through magic, but through courage, devotion, and the purity of love, the only force capable of rebirthing the human soul. Part 8. The breaking of the spell and the return of her voice. That year, spring came late. Snow still clung to the branches, and the lake remained frozen. Yet deep within the earth, the seeds had already begun to stir. In the solitude of the forest, Elara quietly sewed the final stitches of the 6 daisy blossom shirts. Her hands frail, calloused, yet steady, as if her entire soul had been poured into every thread. Many years had passed since the day she vowed to remain silent in order to free her 6 brothers. Throughout that time, not a single word, not a single laugh, not even a single tear was allowed to fall. Elara had lived in the world like a shadow, fragile, yet unwavering. But within that silence, she had learned a language the world had long forgotten, the language of the heart. One morning, as the first rays of sunlight streamed through the trees, a royal hunting party passed nearby. They found a young woman sitting by the lake, her golden hair gleaming like threads of sunlight. They were stunned, not by her beauty, but by the serenity that radiated from her presence, a peace that seemed almost sacred. The leader of the hunters was Aldrich, the young king of a neighboring realm. He dismounted, approached her. Elara lifted her gaze, eyes clear as spring water, and looked at him without speaking. In that instant, something within Aldrich's heart trembled. It was not desire, but reverence, as though he were standing before something holy, something before which even time itself bowed its head in silence. He asked her many questions, but all he received was a gentle quiet. When he saw the blood on her hand, Aldrich took his scarf, wrapped it gently around her wound, and said softly, "I do not know who you are, but I know this. I want to protect you." Elara smiled faintly, lowering her head in silent gratitude, and from that moment, destiny began to weave their paths together. Aldrich brought Elara to his palace. She lived in the Eastern Garden, a sanctuary of daisies and birdsong. No one ever heard her voice, yet all felt her presence bring calm wherever she went. The guards, the gardeners, even the children of the palace said that passing by Elara was like having a sorrow lifted from the heart. Aldrich's love for her deepened, even though he had never heard her speak. He sensed that her silence held more truth than any words could. One evening, as the setting sun bathed the stone walls in gold, Aldrich came to her side, took her hand, and said, "Though you have never spoken a word, my heart understands. If one day you wish to stay by my side, you need only nod." Elara looked at him for a long time. In her eyes, the sunset shimmered like molten gold. She wanted to say yes, but her lips only trembled. Then she lowered her head and continued sewing the final shirt. Aldrich did not understand, but he smiled softly, stepped back, and whispered, "Then I shall wait." Months passed. The 6 shirts were nearly finished. Only a few stitches remained. Each night, Elara looked up at the sky, watching 6 white swans glide across it, their wings radiant like hope itself. She knew the time was near. The spell was close to breaking, but destiny often tests the hearts of those nearing awakening. One night, beneath a bright full moon, a jealous maid, envious of the love and peace Elara inspired, accused her of witchcraft, claiming she had bewitched the king. The rumor spread quickly. Whispers filled the palace. The people began to fear what they could not understand. To them, silence was mystery, and mystery was danger. Elara was brought before the court. The young king stood among his advisors, his eyes filled with worry, not knowing how to defend her. She stood there, silent, tearless, unyielding, for she knew if she spoke, all would be lost. Aldrich stepped forward, placed his hand over his heart, and said, "I do not need words to know what is true. My heart recognizes it, and she, through her silence, has taught me what even this throne could not." His words silenced the court, and at that very moment, Alara finished the final stitch of the 6th shirt. Oh. When the moon reached its peak, she left the palace, walking toward the forest, where the 6 swans were waiting. Snow blanketed the ground, moonlight guided her way. Aldrich followed quietly, asking nothing. He knew something sacred was unfolding, something beyond human understanding. By the lake, the 6 white swans stood, their wings trembling in the cold wind. Alara approached, lifting each shirt with tender hands, placing them over each swan, and each time the fabric touched the feathers, a burst of light spread across the night. The swans transformed into men, her brothers, once lost. The eldest knelt before her, taking her hands. "Alara, you have done what even the gods could not. You have loved in silence, endured through faith, and saved us with your heart." Alara looked at them, her lips quivering, and for the first time in years, a sound emerged, soft, pure like water flowing over stone. "Yes, I will." It was not only an answer to her brother's gratitude, but also to Aldrich's long-awaited question, the vow she could finally speak aloud. At that very moment, the sky ignited. The moon merged with the rising sun, snow melted, the lake rippled, and the first flowers of spring bloomed along the shore. After years of frost, life returned. Alara collapsed into Aldrich's arms, tears streaming down her face. No longer the tears of silence, but of liberation. Carl Jung once said, "Only the wounded healer can truly heal." Alara became the living embodiment of that truth, a soul that had suffered, endured, and loved until her silence itself turned into light. Through her wordless love, she freed her 6 brothers, the imprisoned parts of human reason, instinct, and faith. And through her final tear, she freed herself from the curse of fear, of loneliness, returning to the wholeness of her own soul. In the nights that followed, people said a radiant light still glowed over the lake, and upon the water, the faint reflection of 6 white swans could be seen rising into the dawn. No one ever heard Alara speak again, but throughout the kingdom, whenever silence filled the air, people felt a gentle calm in their hearts, as if a distant voice were whispering within. Love does not always speak. Sometimes it simply breathes. Part 9. The Glass Mountain and the Boy named Kale far in the north, where the wind never ceases to howl and the earth lies frozen beneath an eternal winter. There stood a mountain so tall it seemed to pierce the heavens. The people called it the Glass Mountain, for its peak shimmered like crystal, reflecting the light of both sun and moon. But no one had ever set foot upon it. They said that within the icy castle, atop that mountain, was a princess imprisoned, Princess Lyanna, who had been born with the heart of spring, yet now lay sealed in an eternal sleep. And at the foot of that mountain, in a small desolate village where life battled the cold each day, lived a young man named Kale. He had grown up amid the wailing winds and the silence of snow. Each morning, Kyle would gaze toward the faraway peak. Its glint caught in his eyes like an unnamed dream. The villagers said he was foolish to dream. No one who climbed that mountain ever returned. But within Kale burned something stronger than fear, a silent calling, as if destiny itself waited for him atop that frozen peak. One evening, as the sunset painted the ice with shades of rose, Kale heard the voice of the old blind man whisper beside the fire. That mountain does not merely imprison a princess, it imprisons the human soul. Whoever dares to climb it will not only face the storm, but the darkness within their own heart. Kale said nothing. The firelight flickered in his eyes like a small but unyielding flame. He bowed to the old man and quietly began to pack his things. When dawn came and the village still slept, Carl set out. He carried only a loaf of bread, a flask of water, and a pair of skates, the same skates his father had forged, bound to his childhood memories. His father had once said, "These skates will not only carry you forward, my son. They will teach you balance, between fear and hope, between the cold outside and the fire within." On the path up the mountain was steep and treacherous. Each step was a struggle. The wind cut his face like a blade of ice, but still he climbed. Below him, the valley disappeared, leaving only the vast sky and the steady beat of his heart echoing through the wind. At times he thought he heard a faint voice drifting from above, clear, delicate, like a call from a distant dream. "Kale." He stopped, scanning the horizon, but saw no one. Yet within him, something stirred. A quiet faith awakening. Kale pressed on. When night fell, the stars blanketed the sky, their reflection on the ice making the mountain glisten like glass. He rested against a rock, gazing upward, and whispered to himself, "Perhaps every soul has its own mountain, a place where what we seek waits for us all our lives, yet we only dare to watch from afar." Carl Jung once wrote in The Red Book, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." Kale understood then, to touch the light, one must pass through one's own darkness, the fear of failure, the doubt of being ordinary, and the haunting thought that the world would forget him as it had forgotten countless others. On the third day, a blizzard struck. The world turned white. He could no longer tell the path from the abyss. He fell to his knees, his hands cracked, his lips blue. Then, through the storm, he saw something gleam within the snow. A single white feather, fragile as mist. He picked it up, and at that moment, a giant eagle appeared, wings coated in frost, eyes burning with fire. Kale knew this was the ice guardian of legend, the embodiment of the mountain itself, and the reflection of his own fear. The eagle roared, its voice shaking the heavens. "Who are you to trespass in a realm meant only for sleeping souls?" Kale trembled, but did not retreat. He shouted against the storm, his voice raw, "I do not come to conquer, I come to awaken. If you are the darkness, then take me where the light still sleeps." The eagle dove, its wings stirring a violent gale. Kale seized a rope, leapt forward, and in a single reckless motion, caught hold of the creature's leg. The wind tore at his body, nearly casting him into oblivion. But when he opened his eyes again, he was at the summit. On the peak was silent, a cathedral sculpted of ice. At its center lay an eagle's nest, and within it a golden egg encased in thick frost. Kale understood this was the heart of the mountain, the frozen soul of Princess Liana. He placed his wounded hands upon the ice. His skin split, blood mingling with the clear surface. Taking his small flask, he poured the last drops of warm water and whispered, "Wake, light of spring." The ice began to melt. Golden light burst from within, flooding the mountain with radiance. The egg cracked open, and from it rose a phoenix of fire, singing a song so pure that the entire world seemed to awaken. At that moment, the ice around the crystal castle shattered. From within stepped Princess Liana, her hair flowing like dawn, her eyes tender as the reborn sun. "You came," she said, her voice gentle as spring wind. Kale knelt, not before a princess, but before the miracle of rebirth itself. Liana placed her hand upon his chest, feeling the thundering of his heart. "You did not just free me," she whispered. "You freed yourself." Kale looked up. Around them, the ice melted into cascading rivers, and the sky above the north blazed with the flight of the phoenix, the symbol of death and resurrection, of ashes and flame, of ego and soul united. Carl Jung once wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "In the alchemical process, One must endure the death of what is old in order that something new may be born. And that was Kale's journey. The glass mountain no longer shimmered with cold, but with the reflection of the fire within humankind. From the valley below, villagers gazed up at the sky, marveling at a brilliance unlike any they had ever seen. They said the winter had finally ended. Kale took Leanna's hand, and together they descended, not as conquerors, but as the awakened. He now understood. No princess had ever truly been imprisoned. Only the light within each human soul, buried beneath the ice of fear. And only when we dare to climb our own mountain, to face the cold and the shadow, can the phoenix within us rise anew from the ashes. That night, as Kale and Leanna returned, the northern sky still burned red with the light of the phoenix. Years later, when the wind swept across the mountain, people swore they could still hear a voice in the breeze. Kale's voice, gentle as a whisper in the soul. Sometimes, the mountain is not really out there. It lives within us, waiting to be climbed, waiting to be melted. Part 10. The Golden Egg and the Rebirth of the Phoenix. At the summit of the glass mountain, the blizzard began to fade. The pale northern sun broke through the heavy clouds, casting its fragile light upon Kale's wounded hands, hands that had endured fear and frost to reach a place no one had ever touched. Before him lay a colossal eagle's nest, woven of ice and stone. At its center rested a golden egg, glowing faintly, like the breath of a sleeping soul. Kale knelt. The wind lashed his face, but he no longer felt the cold. His entire being seemed to dissolve into the soft radiance of the egg. He knew. This was the frozen heart of Princess Leanna, the soul of spring imprisoned within the eternal winter. When he placed his hand upon the icy shell, a piercing chill shot through his body like 1,000 needles. But Kyle did not pull away. He remembered the words his father once told him as a boy. Sometimes you must touch your fear to know your heart is still alive. Opening his small flask, he poured warm water over the egg. The water seeped into the ice, cracking it gently, like the beating of a heart. With every drop that fell, Kyle whispered like a prayer, "Wake up. The world's light needs you." The ice began to melt, revealing a golden glow beneath. From deep within, a red spark flared, weak at first, then blazing, as if a flame were remembering itself after centuries buried in frost. Kale stepped back, shielding his eyes. The light exploded outward, scattering into 1,000 shards. And from the center, a phoenix emerged, wings unfurling, its feathers scattering embers like falling stars. It cried out, a sound that rang across the frozen heavens, at once a call and a hymn, the song of a soul finally freed. On the mountain trembled. Sheets of ice cracked and fell from the castle, cascading into rivers of light. Upon the icy stairway, Princess Leanna appeared, stepping through a rain of shining fragments, her white gown soaked, her hair gleaming silver like moonlight. Her eyes, deep, sorrowful, yet tender, held the warmth of dawn after a long winter's night. Kyle fell to his knees. He could not speak. All he could feel was warmth spreading through him, as though the whole world were awakening within that single moment. Leanna came closer, resting her hand upon his shoulder. Her voice was soft as breath. "You have melted the ice of the world, and the ice within your own heart." Kale looked up into her eyes. In them he saw not just her light, but his own reflection. The man who had conquered fear, crossed his limits, and touched the sacred core of his soul. Carl Jung once wrote, in Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Kale was no longer the poor boy from the village. He had found himself. Through the climb up the mountain of the soul, where every challenge was not a battle against the world, but a liberation of the self within. The phoenix circled above them, each sweep of its wings releasing waves of heat that melted the snow across the land. Ice cracked on the rivers, water flowed freely into the valleys. The land that had slept in frost for ages began to breathe again. Villagers looked up to the sky, astonished by the blazing orange light. They fell to their knees, saying, "The sun has been born again." But Carl knew it was not the sun above, it was the sun within, the light long forgotten in the winters of the human soul. Leanna took his hand, her voice rising amid the wind. "My curse was the curse of this world. The moment humanity forgot warmth, forgot kindness. But you remembered, for us all." Kyle smiled. His breath steamed in the cold, but his heart burned bright. Under the phoenix's fiery glow, the two descended the mountain together. With each step they took, ice melted, grass emerged, birds sang, and the first flowers bloomed after centuries of silence. Before it disappeared into the clouds, the phoenix turned one last time, crying out like a message from the universe itself. "From ashes, the light shall be reborn," Jung once wrote in Symbols of Transformation. There is no rebirth without a descent into darkness. Carl understood. The phoenix was not merely a myth. It was the symbol of transformation that dwells within every soul. One cannot be reborn until one has walked through the night of the self, faced the pain without fleeing, and allowed the old self to burn away in the fire of awareness. When they reached the foot of the mountain, the snow had vanished. Clear streams ran through the valley, and the villagers came rushing out. Awestruck at the sight of Carl and Leanna returned. But what silenced them was not the miracle of spring. It was Carl's eyes. Calm, serene. The eyes of one who had seen both the shadow and the light, and found peace between them. That night, they built a great fire in the square. Carl told the story of the golden egg and the phoenix, but softly, as if speaking to his own heart. No one is truly imprisoned in ice. We are only asleep in our fear, and it takes just one spark, a single act of faith, of kindness, of courage, to melt the longest winter. Ihajitri. Well, years later, people said that every spring in the north, a phoenix still soared across the sky, leaving trails of gold and crimson, ribbons of memory. They believed it was the sign of renewal. But Carl knew the phoenix was never out there. It lived within every human heart, waiting to be awakened, waiting for the moment when one dares to believe that light was never lost, only hidden beneath the ice, waiting for our hands to reach it. And so, from the warmth of rebirth, a new chapter of the world began. The phoenix flew across the sky one final time, its cry echoing through the night, a timeless whisper. Rise again from your own ashes. Part 11. The Return of Spring. After the phoenix soared into the sky, the whole world seemed to hold its breath. A radiant wave of light burst forth from the summit of the glass mountain, a place once shrouded only in ice and shadow. That light was not merely fire, it was the light of life itself, awakened after centuries of slumber. The ice began to melt. From the cracks in the cliffs, crystal clear water cascaded down like silver streams, trickling over stones and singing softly, as if the earth were composing its first song. The trees shook off their frosty veils, green shoots pushing bravely through the snow. The land sighed, like someone awakening from a long dream. Carl and Leanna stood side by side, watching the valley below stir and transform. In their eyes, the reflections of sky and earth merged into one. There was no longer a boundary between human and nature, between the Savior and the saved. Leanna spoke softly, her voice flowing like an underground spring. You have awakened the world, Carl, but more importantly, you have awakened your own heart. Carl smiled faintly. He looked at his hands, the wounds carved by the ice still visible, yet every scar now glowed faintly, like sacred marks. He suddenly recalled the words of Carl Jung, once read to him by his father in Memories, Dreams, Reflections. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And now, Cale understood. The phoenix had not only melted the ice of the world, it had melted the ice within the human heart. When they returned to the village, the people fell to their knees in the square, gazing upward in awe. The northern sky, once gray and cold, now blazed with orange and gold. From the dissolving clouds, flocks of birds poured forth, covering the heavens like a rain of life. Children cheered, the elders wept. Farmers who had long forgotten the scent of warm earth now saw the grass sprouting once again. At the foot of the mountain, the first flowers of spring bloomed. White, yellow, violet, weaving together like dreams made of light. Cale and Leanna walked among them, not in glory, but in a peace beyond words. There were no longer rulers, and the ruled no longer the Savior and the saved. Only people breathing together, in unity. The old man of the village came forward, taking Cale's hand, tears streaming down his face. "You have brought spring back to us," he said. But perhaps spring never truly left. It only slept within the human heart, waiting for someone brave enough to call its name. Cale bowed his head and smiled. He understood now. The light of this world had always been here. We had simply forgotten how to see it. That evening, they built a great fire in the village square. Everyone gathered around, retelling the tale of the glass mountain, of the phoenix, and of the young man who brought back the light. But Kyle said nothing. He only sat quietly, listening to the wind in the grass, the laughter of children, and the whisper of his own soul. Leanna watched him. She knew that within that silence, Cale was hearing something no one else could. The voice of the soul itself. Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Cale had walked through that darkness. He had climbed the mountain not only with his body, but with his spirit, driven by the faith that even in the longest night, there is always a small flame waiting to be found. The next morning, Cale and Leanna walked along the river newly freed from ice. The water mirrored the sky, and upon its surface, the faint silhouette of the phoenix still shimmered, ethereal yet radiant. Leanna said softly, "They say a phoenix is reborn only once in 1,000 years, but I believe every time a heart awakens, a phoenix is born again." Cale remained silent. He bent down, plucked a tiny flower growing from a crack in the stone, and handed it to her. "Perhaps the phoenix isn't in the sky," he said. "Perhaps it lives in the small things we've forgotten, like this little flower." Spring had truly come. Green spread across the valley. The river flowed gently, and the sky was so clear one could almost touch the clouds. In that serene landscape, Cale watched the children running across the meadows. In that moment, he felt something he had never known before. Wholeness. No more longing, no more fear. Only the present, still, full, alive. He realized his journey was not just a fairy tale, but the reflection of the path humanity must take. To endure the winter of the soul, to let the old self die, to face solitude and shadow, and only then to return to the simplicity and clarity of the inner spring. Years later, people told stories that every spring, two strange birds flew over the valley, their feathers glowing red and gold, soaring side by side, leaving a long ribbon of light across the sky like a thread of hope. They called them the Reborn pair and believed they were Cale and Leanna, not in body but in spirit, souls merged with the cosmos, becoming eternal symbols of rebirth, light, and the unending kindness of the human heart. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." Cale had accepted his darkness, faced his fear, and surrendered his ego. And through that, spring returned. Not only to the world, but to the human soul itself. And from that day on, whenever the warm northern wind brushed across the meadows, people would say, "It is the breath of Kale, the man who brought spring back from the heart of ice." Part 12. Aurora and the Guardian. Fairy Kingdom. When spring spread across the world, snow melted on distant hills, and the sun shone again after centuries of slumber, people began to live more slowly. They noticed the songs of birds, the scent of new grass, and the simple things they had long forgotten. In that kingdom, at the edge of a deep green forest, lived a girl named Aurora. Aurora was no princess, nor of noble blood. She was simply an ordinary soul, one who loved nature, cherished silence, and spent her days painting leaves, flowers, and the shimmering reflections upon the stream. Villagers often said she was different because Aurora liked to talk to trees and lay her hands upon their trunks to listen to the breathing of the earth. One afternoon, as the sunset dyed the forest in warm amber, Aurora wandered deeper than usual. She heard the murmur of a stream and the wind calling her name. For the first time, she felt no fear, only the sensation of coming home. She walked until the light in the forest shifted to a gentle gold, not the light of the sun, but one born from the soil and the leaves themselves. Before her was a hidden garden, radiant beyond words, so beautiful that even time seemed to pause to watch. In the center of that garden stood a woman with wings made of flower petals. The queen had hair like sunlight and eyes as deep as the primordial woods. She smiled softly. "Welcome, Aurora. We have been waiting for you for a very long time." Aurora froze. You know my name?" The queen nodded gently. "Your name means dawn, and this world is in need of a new dawn." Aurora was led through the garden of the guardian fairies, tiny beings shaped from leaves, water, and light. There was a fairy of wind, a fairy of seeds, a fairy of rivers, and a fairy of memory, each tending to a part of the earth's soul. The queen introduced each one, then turned to Aurora and said, "Humankind has forgotten its sacred bond with nature. You built walls, burned forests, poisoned rivers, and severed yourselves from us. But your heart still hears the voice of Mother Earth." Aurora fell silent. A strange sadness stirred within her. She looked at the delicate wings fluttering around her, heard the rustling of the forest, and understood humans had truly forgotten. They forgot that they do not simply live on the earth, but belong to it. She whispered, "What can I do to make it right?" The queen smiled and placed a small seed in her palm, glowing softly like a pearl. "Take this seed back to the human world. Plant it where your heart feels at home. When you plant it with love, it will grow into a tree of connection, a tree of forgotten memories." In the days that followed, Aurora lived among the guardian fairies. She helped them build homes from leaves, learned to collect morning dew to water the seedlings, and mastered the languages of birds and wind. At night, she slept beneath luminous branches, listening to the forest whisper tales of ancient times. When humans and nature were one, she came to understand that every living thing carries a soul. Every branch is a breath, every drop of water a memory, and every gust of wind a whisper of the cosmos. In that stillness, Aurora realized something she had never known. Healing is not about doing something grand, but about restoring what has been broken. Carl Jung once said, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity." Aurora did not use intellect to heal the world. She used love, the most sacred instinct within humanity, though so often forgotten. On the day of her departure, Queen Marigold gifted her a slender branch engraved with words of light. "Honorary Guardian Fairy, Aurora. You now carry our spirit within you," said the queen. "Bring it back to your kind and remind them, the earth does not need to be possessed, only to be loved." Aurora held the branch close, tears falling upon its golden petals. When she turned back, the garden had already begun to dissolve into light, leaving only the forest, the wind, and birdsong. That night, when she returned home, Aurora placed the branch beneath her pillow and whispered, "Thank you for helping me remember that I am part of something greater." The next morning, as the sun rose, she found the branch glowing faintly, releasing a soft fragrance, the scent of earth after rain. She carried it outside and planted it in the small garden behind her house. Day by day, the tree grew. Its roots sank deep into the soil. Its branches reached toward the sky. Each time Aurora touched a leaf, she heard the gentle laughter of the guardian fairies, as if they were still with her. Villagers began to visit her garden. They felt something strange standing beneath that tree, as though their weariness was washed away, and their hearts grew lighter, calmer. Gradually, they brought their own seeds, planting new trees beside hers, and the air in the village began to change. People smiled more. They spoke gently. But Carl Jung once wrote in Man and His Symbols, "The individual who unites with nature returns to the source of life, and thereby to himself." Aurora had done just that, not through magic, but through connection. She did not defeat anyone, nor break any curse. She simply healed the distance between human and nature, between reason and soul. Years later, when Aurora had grown old, the guardian tree stretched up to the heavens. Each night when the wind blew, its leaves glowed softly, and the forest sang a serene melody. People said that on bright moonlit nights, they could see fireflies circling the tree, like tiny fairies watching over humanity's sleep. And if anyone drew near, they would hear a voice whispering through the breeze. Aurora's voice, gentle as breath, repeating the words Queen Marigold once spoke. "The world will heal when humans remember they belong to it." From that day on, the guardian tree became a symbol of harmony, love, and awakening. People called it the Tree of Dawn, for when the first light of morning touched its branches, it glowed like Aurora herself, the girl whose name meant dawn, the one who helped the world remember how to love again and how to listen to the earth with the heart.